Welcome one, welcome all to episode 209 of the Xbox Expansion Pass, recorded on Saturday, December 23rd, 2023. I'm your host, Luke Lohr, the InsipidGhost, joined by my co-host, the intrepid Captain Logun. Alongside the captain today, we are joined by DaddyDWally and Jose Martinez III, hosts of The Nerd Chat, a fellow Xbox podcast bringing Xbox and gaming news to gamers. Today, we'll be chatting about the Insomniac Hacks, Starfield Milestones, and Game Pass through the year. It is the final standard episode of XCP until the new year. Logan, we like to start the show by offering words of kindness to those who have made our gaming weeks better. But first, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Last night was outside social Logan night. So this morning is getting back into sitting in room playing video game Logan mode. And outside of that, I was surprised that this week had as much news as it does.
Agreed. I found the same thing to be the case. I thought it was going to be a very reflective, chill episode, and it was not that. At least not in building the notes. But I'd be remiss if I did not also introduce our two guests, two of the three parts of the Nerd Chat and Xbox podcast. DaddyDWally, it is your birthday. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much to both.
Did we lose
of you,
Dan?
Luke.
55 years old today.
That's nope, not even close. So
61. Get it right.
Well, come on, guys. I'm 39. Thank you very much. And as far as words of kindness go, thank you guys so much to you both for inviting Jose and I on. This is really special, I think, for Jose. I think I can speak for him that we are here.
Absolutely.
It's like, I was going to use that baseball analogy that I like to use, being called up from the minors to the majors with you guys, but it's more like being called up from the Rust level ranking in Halo up to Onyx. Okay. That's kind of how we compare our podcast to your guys. So thank you so much for having us on. And Logan, I got to ask, what does nighttime social, Captain Logan, entail?
It entails avoiding getting shots poured down your throat. Lots of dancing.
Was it your birthday too?
No, but it was a birthday party.
Oh, nice. Very nice. So guys, thank you so much for having us. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Dan, I'm glad that you are here. I'm anxious to know if Social Logan wore pants. But Jose Martinez III, aka Chipotle Bear, the man who, by the way, to any listener who checks us out on YouTube, sees those avatars, he created those for us. How are you, dude?
I am great, guys. Very, very happy to be here. I echo a lot of what Dan said. We've been doing this gig for what feels like a while now, even though you guys have been doing it much longer, and then some of our other podcasting friends have been doing it even much longer than that. But it feels great, man. We listen to your show every week. I feel like we know you, even though we've not gotten to chat with you directly, but always get excited to see you in the chat. Always love to support you guys. So thank you for having us here today and celebrating the magic of Christmas, man. It's great.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's it feels good to me. We were talking prior to hitting record. Dan, we had not met, but I thought we had because I listen every week. That's the plight of the podcaster sometimes, is you think you're on the same page, and then it's like, well, wait, because you're saying you look up to us. I'm like, I look up to you guys. What are you talking about?
Oh, don't even. No, that's so funny. Wait, Luke, I got to ask, is Jose the one creating those amazing GIF? I know it's GIF, but it's really GIF. Those amazing GIFs. It's not Jose creating those amazing ones that you post on X platform.
No, not the GIFs.
No, I do those. Those are me. Thanks to Canva and whatnot. So that's me working on those. Okay. But it's I'm not good at thumbnails, and it's a constant play. Do I put Phil Spencer in it or not? And I feel like I sell out every time. But YouTube is so finicky about its algorithms; it's very difficult. And I'm not. I don't have a skill set that's dedicated to that, so it's always funny.
Me neither. That's why I have Jose do it, or I ask Bing Chat now, if you've noticed. So that's my advice.
There you go. So, well, Logan, did we get your words of kindness?
No, we didn't actually. So this week, I really just want to shout out Dan and Jose for actually coming on. To be perfectly honest, it's nice when we have these opportunities to get to chat with other people. I get to talk to Luke pretty much every day, throughout the week, but getting other people's opinions and stuff, into the show for other people to hear sometimes is some of the best conversations you can have. And it's nice to have a couple of guys to bring in that are trustworthy, to have like, pretty good conversation points on a lot of the topics that I know we're going to be talking about. So I'm very excited to see the nuance to your guys' conversations as opposed to the Twitter posts and stuff. So it'll be cool to kind of like dive into that. And I just wanted to thank you guys for coming on, hanging out, and especially on your birthday or on your daughter's birthday. Like, of all days.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Scarlett. Yeah, sorry.
Two
Jose, did
days
you guys
before
mention that too?
Christmas.
Yeah, Jose.
Yeah, I said it. Yeah, sorry. It's my daughter's 9th birthday, so I already told her I have an hour, a hard deadline for my wife and daughter. But no, it's a pleasure. Both you guys, truly, like, it's a lot of fun. We agree. We talk to each other all day on our chat.
Yeah, we mention you guys all the time on our podcast. Like, hey, remember when Luke said this?
It's nice to be part of the community, man, which is great.
One quick thing I got to say. It's Jose's daughter's birthday as well. And I just want to say this used to be a really special day between me and Jose, but then he had to have his dang daughter being born on the same
So
day.
Luke said, he's like, I can't believe your daughter had the
selfish.
audacity to have her birthday today.
And Logan, you were saying, hearing other people's opinions. That's why I really appreciate listening to other podcasts as well, as I enjoy hearing what everyone else has to say about everything that's going on. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, well, I don't listen to other gaming podcasts. I love it. And I think it's great to hear all these different opinions. So I really appreciate that point you just stressed there.
Yeah, it's nice to at least get those other opinions in there, because I think so often not the content creators that aren't willing to listen to other content creators' stuff tends to, you can be resolute in your opinion, right? But it's also nice to be open to being wrong about that opinion from time to time. And I think that's it's important to be able to listen to other folks to hear a different perspective. You may not have to agree with it, but at least you're listening to it. That I think is one of the few things that just we don't see too often in gaming or just in life in general. So it's nice to be able to express that that's an okay thing to do.
I think that's been the coolest part about this week for me is how watching the Insomniac leaks, which I know we're about to talk about, hearing the perspectives of so many different people about journalism, about content creators, about the voices we're supposed to have. That is to me a hugely important element. And so I'm going to take us straight to our first story. We'll do our Patreon pitch in a bit. Insomniac suffered a massive hack in the past week, and I want to appreciate Butch in our community, who I was calling it a leak, and he was rightfully correcting my verbiage in that it should be a hack because those have different implications. A lot of personal information was released from Insomniac workers. A build for Wolverine was out there, as well as the future slate for Insomniac, and we won't intentionally ruin anything for anybody, but it really called into question how the games journalism, games media both respond to covering these various topics. It felt like a very different reaction in covering Insomniac's leak to what we saw from Capcom, from Rockstar, from Xbox proper. And maybe that is a difference between a hack and a leak in some respects, others not. But it was really interesting to watch the conversations surround this because I took issue with a number of aspects for how people were covering it. Others did not. And there was a lot of, in our community anyhow, very good dialogue for what it means to be a journalist and not. And I'm curious if any of you would like to jump in with strong feelings on this topic.
Luke, I am kind of curious. When you got done playing the leak or the hacked build and contacted the QA developers directly on their personal phone numbers, did you hear from them as far as when you were out like breathing on the window from their building like a few weeks ago?
You and Joseph, right? Oh,
that's right. We did visit Insomniac. That's true. It was us. It was us. Hello. I think the thing that I really appreciate about it was the death threats that I gave. They really took serious. No,
that's good. That's good. You know, especially like when you're threatening them with like suffocating them in jelly bellies. It sends a message. You know, it sends a real sugary, sweetie kind of like, I love you, but I'm going to I will end your life if this game doesn't come out perfectly.
Let's be honest. It would be Rocksteady that I'd be upset with.
I wanted to jump on in this because I wasn't sure like if we would talk about this being an Xbox podcast and this is being something so centric to PlayStation and stuff, but First off, condolences to all of the staff who've had their information exposed. I get reports every month based on like information that is personal to me that gets out on like the dark web and stuff like that. I see all like the email addresses that people make of me with my name to sign me up for stuff. I see the junk mail come through from time to time of like the things that people are using my email address to be able to like sign me up for things. And that's just as a content creator, right? Like I have an email that's out there for the show that gets used and abused. And when you find out how much of your information gets ripped out of the dark web, and you're just sitting there like thinking like, great, now people who I don't know have my actual address, which I give my address to some friends for purposes of like they want to send me something or something like that. But outside of that, most people should not know where I live. I'd rather that be the case. So when you get into that feeling of like uncertainty, like I didn't wish that, or I wish that that wasn't something that I had to think about in the back of my mind, because that is just anxiety driving there. The hacks themselves, I think there's a good distinction amongst a lot of us now who are talking about the difference between a hack and a leak that has helped try to reaffirm that leaks are going to happen, and most of us will generally cover those because it is news and it is interesting. We don't typically spoil anything because that would kind of ruin the experience of the game. But when it comes to hacks and not talking about that, I think that it's still valid for us to talk about it, especially if we're going to share our opinion on not being a good thing or a positive thing to support. But I don't understand why someone wouldn't want to talk about it just at a high level.
Yeah, so the leaks are often self-inflicted wounds, whereas a hack is acquired by nefarious means. But to separate that from the actual news portion, I get very upset, and I took great offense to seeing self-described journalists not reporting news. I think there's an ethical and moral obligation of a journalist to report on news. And that is a very different thing than a content creator or a gaming enthusiast or enthusiast press. There were a lot of people that talked about Kind of Funny. Kind of Funny is they are not journalists. They are not bound by journalistic ethics, journalistic standards. They are enthusiast press. They can do what they want. They're content creators to a point. But a journalist should report on news. Are we going to pretend that we now do not know the slate that is before us for what's coming from Insomniac? That is not, to me, ethically or morally correct to do when reporting. And I get very frustrated by that. It would be disingenuous for a journalist to pretend that they don't know how poorly Sunset Overdrive sold when offering a retrospective, now that that's out there. It is important to note that it was acquired by nefarious means, but a journalist is held to certain standards, whereas enthusiast press, content creators, they are not. They are free to do what they want in private publishing. That is part of being a content creator or enthusiast press. But it's a big difference when I see journalists not reporting news or pretending they don't know the news. I get very finicky about that.
Can I ask,
yes.
Luke? And I'm right there with you. And I did think it was a little bizarre when I saw, the Kind of Funny reaction. And obviously, I think we're talking about the Greg Miller's little clip that he sent out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure all of us look up to them because they're kind of like him and Colin and IGN and McCaffrey and all those guys. Like the reason probably most of us got into podcasting, at least for us.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think you're right? They are content creators, they're not journalists, but do you think because they have such a massive audience and a massive following that did it rub you the wrong way? Because is that the reason? Because they just have such sway and influence over the video gaming Twitter sphere,
Yeah, if you'd asked me that question 2 years ago, I'd probably have a different answer. But in the wake of a lot of the political turmoil in the United States through social movements and Black Lives Matter, through the elections of Trump and Biden and all the discourse that came in social movements, I examined a lot of how people get their information and the responsibility of the consumer of information versus the distributor. It's kind of like looking at Joe Rogan and getting mad that he said something, that a comedian with a big audience said something. Well, are you getting your political opinions from a comedian? Is that whose fault are we talking about here? Is there a responsibility of somebody with a big audience to articulate their points and be clear with their audience? I think so, yes, but I don't get to say that and definitively tell them what to do. I have a responsibility to be genuine to XCP's audience. They have a responsibility to decide if I'm being truthful and stick around or not. And that is a two-way street there. I think when it came to Kind of Funny, a lot of people saw the clips, and the clips are pretty damning. But there is a greater context to come around, and that's important too. For me to go out and be angry at Kind of Funny without having watched the full episode or show, probably a little bit odd, but I no longer consume Kind of Funny, and that's not a diss to them. It didn't suit my interest as much anymore. So I can't be mad at them, and I am not mad at them. Like, that is not a fair thing. I do think when you have an audience, you have a responsibility to adhere to that audience, just as the audience needs to acknowledge that, hey, Greg and Blessing are in Spider-Man 2. Greg was in Spider-Man 1. Like, they have a definitive tie to
I forgot about that.
Insomniac.
Yeah, I forgot.
You know, that's part of it. And they're also fully entitled to their opinion. And as a private distributor of content, they can say what they like. That's different to me than a journalist describing themselves as a journalist, having journalistic standards, and then breaking them by refusing to report or saying, hey, you know what? Not now. Because then you get ideas of favoritism and whatnot. And it's bad timing next to all the recent discussions of Xbox tax, which are not necessarily this topic, but it pairs poorly in terms of timing.
Yeah.
Jose or Logan?
I just want to add, I agree with you a lot. I don't have a lot to add other than we talked about this too on our show about, I just saw it as like, I'm not dissing Sony or PlayStation or helping them. I just like, if the only way people get news is through our podcast, theoretically, they would want to know what happened, right? They would want to know the story. So I'm not necessarily trying to be biased. I think it was important when we talked about it to also be, I was very positive, like without spoiling stuff. I liked what I saw with the Wolverine stuff. Like I was like, this is an early build and I think it looks fun. Like I think it's a fun game, even though, there's some critiques out there as well. But I think it's weird. I think it'd be weird not to share this information if you were a gaming outlet, whether that's content creation or podcast, whatever, and just saying like, we don't want to talk about it. And I get that people say, like, I think the argument is like, you don't want to glorify people that like jump on stage during an award show. They don't like to show that footage because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get their face out there. This is a little bit different. And so I didn't see as much of an issue. But you're right. I was very surprised by the total amount of like, there are some people real heated about people reporting on this. Yeah. And I was like, but I would want to know what happened. Everybody does, especially if you're into games at all. So, I guess it's just one of those, you'll never make everyone happy.
Logan, I want to ask you, do you think, is there a big difference? I mean, obviously the hack is a hack and it's terrible. And I completely agree with everyone's sentiments on it, but Sony could have prevented this, right? Theoretically, like they could have paid this ransom and this might not have happened. And I'm just confused at why media, Twitter was so willing to talk about, Grand Theft Auto, Capcom, the NVIDIA leaks. And I know the Microsoft leak was self-inflicted, but it's still a leak that information should not have been out there. I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on how it's been covered compared to those other ones?
It's definitely, it's one of those situations that I think that this one hit a little bit closer to home for a lot of the media because of how much reverence they have for Insomniac, just based on their Spider-Man games and Ratchet and Clank and stuff. And to be perfectly honest, I as a person who makes podcasts, I am on an Xbox podcast. I am willing to admit and be upfront with my bias. My bias is towards my box. I like my box. It's black. It has everything that I want out of it. It's not as big or bulky as the PS5, but I do absolutely love a lot of the games on the. Yeah, I knew that was coming in. It's definitely where I lean. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I'm not going to pretend that I am above the bias in this case. So when I see other areas of the discussion being had, and I see this bias coming out, I recognize that for what it is, and I'm not going to condemn Kind of Funny for being biased towards Insomniac. They've been very kind to Kind of Funny as far as like the Spider-Man franchise. So for them to not want to do that, it feels like there was someone who it was like your best friend getting in a breakup. It's like you want to be protective of your buddy because they're going through some stuff right now, right? That's what I saw coming from Kind of Funny. The problem with that, I think, is what you're addressing or what you're wondering about is why wasn't this something that was treated on equal terms with the Capcom hack or other hacks like that or other leaks in general? Why are leaks through DMs coming from people that have information prior to it? And honestly, like the leakers that are out there that are being braggadocious about being right about stuff, I think is a little over the top for me. That's not my bag. I don't really get a whole lot of like, oh, I was right the whole time kind of thing. When I see people doing that, I'm like, yeah, you knew and you said it. Now that everyone else knows, what is that just means that your leaks are confirmed? I don't want to know what the leaks are for the most part until they're ready to be shown. I like those trailers. I like knowing what's going to happen in the future, but I don't. But it's that's always that tightrope. But with Kind of Funny in particular, or just games journalists not treating other hacks with as much consideration as Insomniac, it's clear that maybe we need to be a little more honest with our bias or a little more unbiased. And that's, I think that's if people are going to talk about the Xbox tax, I don't think that we need to call it the Xbox tax. I think we just need to call it the Sony bias, because it's not what people are doing against Xbox. It's just what people are doing that's in favor of the system that they prefer.
Mm-hmm. I will say, I don't know if you guys felt this way. When I distanced myself from the moral discussion points, I was really excited about Insomniac's slate of games coming up. And I was like, yo, let's go. I like this. It made me more excited for PlayStation's slate. And I know a lot of people were bouncing back saying, oh, they don't like how Marvel based it is. And I thought that was interesting because Sean Layden, when he spoke about AAA games and Sony some years back before he left, it's not a sustainable model. And disappointingly, we saw that more and more games are becoming more expensive for Sony to make. They make some of the best over-the-shoulder third-person action narratives on the market, if not the best. Spider-Man 2 is on my list for Game of the Year. But the return of investment, the ROI there, cool statement by me, ROI.
Sound like an industry pro.
Thanks, man. I read an article once. I watched a video.
I read books.
I read one once. The ROI is consistently less and less, so much so that we now know, thanks to these leaks, Insomniac is due to make cuts, despite just releasing a Game of the Year contender. We now know that they have to sell X million units before they can be profitable, and that number is something like 6 million units for some of their upcoming titles, which I'm excited for, but like, yo, that's harder and harder and more difficult to sustain as a model. And as a result, games like Ratchet and Clank or the less known IP are not going to get made. And I think there is something gained and lost in that truth. I'm stoked because they make great games and I like Marvel. So sweet. On the other hand, I do think there is something lost when you don't get your Ratchet and Clanks or your smaller projects from a team. And so I'm very curious. But despite Insomniac being a consistent critical hit machine, they are going to get cut. They are having jobs being lost there. And that's the difficult reality that comes with stuff like this. People found out before Christmas, in a year where we've seen over 10,000 industry layoffs, that they're going to get laid off after Christmas. It's like, oh, yeah, man.
On that Marvel or Insomniac becoming the Marvel Studios of PlayStation, like I got to ask, going back to the Xbox or PlayStation bias or PlayStation preference, I'm just comparing it to like Coalition or 343. Are you excited that Insomniac's literally just going to be doing Marvel games like 343 only makes Halo games, or the Coalition only makes Gears game? Or, would you rather them venture out a little bit? Like you said, this is going to bring in money. And as much as I hate to say it, yeah, I'll be there probably day one for that dang X-Men game because I'm a huge X-Men. I've got Gambit right behind me, old school Gambit. You probably can't see him, but 1990s gambit back there. So yeah, I was just wondering, like, how do you think the audience or fans are going to react to Insomniac becoming the Marvel Studios and we're maybe not seeing another Ratchet or new IP?
Well, they
even though
didn't
it
get
was
Blade, I'll tell you that.
well. So yeah, Luke, I was wondering what you thought about that.
I'm fine with it. It does not bother me in the slightest. I think it's great. Let me rephrase that. I think it's great that I, as a consumer who enjoys superhero IP, is going to be getting more superhero IP from a great studio. I am consistently bummed, and you made this point on Nerd Chat, and I stand by this to this day. Some franchises shouldn't be exclusive. Some IP shouldn't be exclusive. I think Marvel and DC and Star Wars should belong to everyone. I hate when I see that they're exclusive. Spider-Man really broke my heart when it was exclusive, and it stinks that Xbox gamers aren't getting to experience it. However, with Sony's shift to PC, there's another avenue for them to check out their stuff. But apart from the fact that they're going to be exclusive titles, rock on. You know, like I think it's fine. I don't mind when that happens.
Do your feelings still feel the same way towards 343 and Coalition only producing those types of games, or would you rather them venture out? How about that?
I think in the case of Xbox based studios, they had this vision in the Xbox One era of the Coalition and 343 being Halo and Gears studios. But in recent years, we've seen sub teams create titles for multiple Xbox studios. We've seen Obsidian have multiple teams. We've seen Rare have multiple teams. A lot of them are doing extra stuff. And I think they're realizing the flaw in the just one category. When I think about like 343, they're just now getting it right. And it's largely due to Master Chief team coming over to Infinite, and gosh, Infinite's great now.
Don't tell Ains that they're just now getting it right, or me. Come on, Luke. Halo has always been a great game.
Ains has such a blind spot. It's
Did
beyond
you hear his
me.
Hour count this year? He had 700 hours in Halo this year.
I do want to point out the man is in the flights. He's like friends with people at the studio, so
he's got the same bias.
He's very biased if he's not willing to admit it, which I'm sure he will, that Halo is a lot more special than any other franchise to him because of the relationships he's built.
Yeah. I don't know if Ains is. I love Halo Infinite. I feel like I lost the sauce there. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. I was just wondering if it's, it just seems like, oh, it's great if Insomniac's the Marvel studio, but it kind of sounds like you're saying you want Halo and Gears to venture out a little bit. And I just think that's fun. They're kind of like swapping positions almost, PlayStation and Xbox, when it comes to their first party studios, which is, it's so crazy. Like the whole generation from X1 to now it's really, really interesting. So sorry, that's all I wanted to point out.
I don't see them as apples to apples, but it is a good thing to point out. It is a good thing to point out. If Xbox was licensing an IP that wasn't their own, I think we might have a little bit more leeway. But both Gears and Halo as franchises have done separate outings. Halo has done RTS. They've done twin stick shooters. They've got an arcade game. Gears has a tactics game. So there have been branches for both of those franchises. And they're owned by Xbox. So I don't think it's quite apples to apples, but the point is not lost, and the spirit of your question makes good sense. Jose, did you get to finish your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did. I'm good, man.
Okay, cool. Well, Logan, you are correctly noting to me that we have not yet done our Patreon shout outs for this week.
Just clicked.
And I appreciate that. It is important that we do thank our patrons who have been so generous this year. And we even had a few people that saw that some XEP bills are due, which I'm grateful for the help. They upped their Patreon count. So I'm so grateful to the Muffin Mon and Ellery and Butch for all raising their Patreon levels, because that's going to help me pay for Canva, for the editing software. I'm so grateful. Patreon.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. Thank you guys. Join there. Be part of our Discord. We have a great community and it's awesome. Our tier 2 and 3 shout outs this week. Would you like to go for that one, Logan?
Yeah. So 2 tier and 3 shout outs this week go to Nicholas Johnson, Ellery Woods Parker III, Nicholas Downey, Rob Frawley II, Tao Zochi, Xbox Skittle, Steel Rain, Matto 1606, Randall Thor 19, Silkadit, Rick Gaffney, African aka Charles Jones, Game Positive, Jam Pack Sam, Matt Valdez, Neo Prime 33, Rick Davis, Red Beast, Xbox My 29, The Lord Sir Master James Suddy, Brendan Myers, aka The Winter Gamer, Sony's VP of Marketing Kevin Butler, Clint Coombs, DJ Hero, and Dano12. Thank you guys so much for the love, the support. Everything that you do does get put back into the podcast, unless it goes to like one of Luke's fetishes. We don't know. Did I say that?
No.
You'll cut that out, right?
I will not, because it's too much work to edit something.
Okay, well,
here we are.
Rubber. I don't know what to tell him.
Yeah. Now we know about that party last night. I will say, Matto1606 has been doing a lot of help for me in Diablo, so shout out to him. He has been awesome.
I think you mean carried.
Oh yeah, 100%. But also like teaching me about the game in a way that I have not learned, because I learned well from you and from him, because you guys are nice when you teach me stuff. So
instead of getting yelled at, yeah.
Yeah, Kevin is just such a dick.
Yeah, I don't yell at you when we play Call of Duty or Halo, right, Jose?
Oh, every time you yell at me.
No, I'm nice to you.
Tune it out now.
Negative reinforcement is not useful for me. Not a thing. Not a thing.
Luke likes to be coddled. Like he has a blanket. He has a wife. She holds him while he's like reading a book about like what he has to teach kids the next year.
Nobody reads books anymore. We watched Violent Night last night on the couch.
Good movie.
It was good. I was surprised. Did not expect to like it.
I love the heart that's in that movie. I was not expecting the heart to be there, but also the whole Norse god thing was pretty awesome too.
Norse god thing.
Or was it Norse?
Oh, the fact that he was a warrior?
Yeah.
Yes, that was
a god of war.
Was he a god of war? Oh, okay.
I think he was a god of war.
He was a warrior. I don't know. Either way, I dug it. It was cool. Boys, Starfield, which I'm told was a massive flop by the internet, has just surpassed 13 million players. And Bethesda put out a really cool infographic, which if you click on, you guys can pull that up on your screens, but with some incredibly cool stats. And I thought it was really awesome because to me, Starfield is one of my games of the year. Yes, certainly has its flaws. I think Bethesda's format or design doc could use some serious updating, but to have 13 million players. Yeah, I know. To have 13 million players in just a couple months' time, to know that mod support is on the way, to see their roadmap, tells me that this is a franchise that's going to do quite well. I think comparisons to Skyrim are often really silly because Skyrim has been out for how many years, re-released how many times, it's available on a fridge, and Starfield is just getting started. Bethesda confirmed that they're going to have their expansion, Shattered Space, in 2024, and some of these stats out here are amazing. They also said that starting in February, they're going to have updates, quality of life updates every 6 weeks, which I don't believe in the slightest, because I've heard that from Xbox Studios before, including my man Joseph Staten, whom I hold on a very high pedestal. I don't know that that's a cadence I expect to happen, but still really cool news out of Bethesda for Starfield. I thought this was great, and I hope more people jump into the game and check it out, over the coming weeks. What did you guys think about this?
I think Jose, you should mention your point about the comparison to Skyrim. I always appreciated what you said about
what I kind of mentioned it. Is that like I love Skyrim? I have all the love for Elder, like Oblivion, and every iteration before that. But like Skyrim is part 5. It is the 5th iteration of that series, and Starfield is iteration 1. And if you compare that to the first Elder Scrolls, like how they compare, it's amazing. It's an incredible game. Like it's life changing. It's just Skyrim has had a decade to get good. You know what I'm saying? To build a modded community. And so I've been high on Starfield since it started. Like I understand the complaints. I understand that there's definitely things they could improve. I had my own criticisms when I played the game, but I still loved the game. And even though, like, I know there's all the rhetoric, there were articles that like, oh, it's hemorrhaging players and everything like that, but it also had been out for 2 months. Like that's how gaming works. We move on right after we play some of our games. Even I was like, I kind of want to get back into Starfield. Like I'm playing a lot of like first person shooters right now, but like during the holiday season, I just want something to kind of like fall into. And like, I'm kind of getting the itch to go back. Like it's a great game, man. Like we were looking at the stats too. It's insane how much time has been put into like shipbuilding and base building and how many people have died. The one thing I was going to ask, and I don't know if you have the infographic in front of you is we were trying to figure out, there's 2 stats on there that we confused by. One of them was players that became starborn and people that crossed the.
I'm looking at it right now, Jose. It's 1,631,000 starborn players, and then the one we were confused about is crossings of the Unity, 5,178,000 players.
So basically, of the 13 million, it sounds like just under half have crossed the Unity. But I couldn't figure out what that meant in terms of the game, and maybe that's a testament to like the game is a little bit confusing at times, right? But like, because that to me that makes it sound like the first time you get to one of the flying globe things, you know what I'm saying? And then the becoming starborn, I assume, is a reference to the end of the game. Is that what you would understand as well, or you have a different understanding of that? Either of you guys,
Logan?
I think mine's a little bit different. I think the crossing of the Unity is finishing the game. I think the Starborn players are the people who ventured into the new game plus.
Yes, that's what I thought too.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay,
That's what I thought.
That
as well.
makes sense.
Pure speculation on that though. Like that's just
No,
how
that
I
does make
interpret it.
sense.
Yeah, and I don't want to like spoil the ending right now,
Right.
because this is all
Which is a
tied directly
bad
to
ending, by the way. It's a bad ending. I heard you talking on. It's such a bad ending. It's such a bad ending, and it's so
Luke is
lame.
alone on this.
The Starborn are so stupid.
Oh my god!
So you see it from a mile away.
What?
You can tell in the first time you're in that mission quest, it's like, oh, I know exactly what's happening. And
No, this
I
is-
was
okay.
not spoiled.
Oh,
I
is
totally
someone
knew what
coming-
happened.
oh my!
This is coming from someone who's like, there's no aliens. How come there's
I
no
was
aliens?
so pissed.
Oh,
So pissed at
Logan! Oh, I didn't know this. Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I really think the main story of Starfield is bad. I think it's
So you're,
really
but
bad.
you're still high on the game despite it. The
Correct.
ending for you.
Well,
Look,
like I love the ships. I love the battles. Like when you're fighting. I really liked it's been too long. Crimson Fleet's missions chain, the Alien
Crimson
mission
Fleet's stuff.
chain.
You see Vanguard.
Yep, loved those two. Those were fantastic. But the story proper, I thought was awful. I was really disappointed with it.
Is this because you didn't get Andreja to like you?
Yes,
is that why you're so
exactly.
bitter?
He did not
I
get
didn't like
Andrea.
I like
Who's your
Sarah.
main?
Oh my!
Sarah.
Yeah.
How do you deal with this, Logan? Holy, I can't even.
It's strenuous to hear him wax poetic about how much better this game would be if it had Klingons or Borg in it, and I'm just like, bro, we already have those games. Like,
Yes.
it's okay to not have those games. Also, Sarah is boring.
Oh my!
This is so
It says a lot,
boring.
right?
Here's the thing: like they have this buildup in Starfield where, like there is a religious faction that worships the serpent.
Yes.
There's no serpents. None.
You don't know.
There's nothing.
There's
There's
nothing
nothing.
later
Space
down the
versus
road.
That's
Yeah.
great. They need to have that there. Like there was so much that was just like, hey, this is this. It's like, oh, all right.
Luke is if I don't see Santa, I can't believe in him.
I'm a man of science, Logan.
You know what?
And like not to be forgotten, how we get Starborn and like the thing that destroyed Earth, so lame. So lame. You're telling me that's what kickstarted the technology, the boon? No, thank you. No,
Oh,
thank
I
you.
mean, that's war in general. Look at the atom bomb, buddy.
Yeah.
Correct, but that's what it was. I don't want to spoil it for anybody,
Yeah,
but like
come on.
it was just so like that's your MacGuffin. Lame.
Okay, I'm gonna
Man.
jump in. I'm gonna jump in here. I have to say, I was one of the few. I don't know if I'm one of the few, but I absolutely loved Starfield. It will be my game of the year, and I have not played. I will say this: I've not played Baldur's Gate 3, and I know Luke doesn't plan on playing that either. And I've not played Spider-Man, but I've played a lot of the games. Played Alan Wake, jumped a little bit into Breath of
You
the
didn't play
Wild.
Tears
but-
of the Kingdom either,
or
right?
sorry, Tears of the Kingdom, but I played Breath of the Wild, right? Like that's come on. So I just want to say this. I think I was one of the few people in the world who went into this game without this massive expectation. And shout out to MKen10, Matt Kennedy. He likes to say, well, Bethesda has been speaking it up. It's their first new IP in 26 years. That's building so much hype. I'm like, yeah, but that's a fact. This is their first new IP. And I don't think that's overhyping it. I went into it expecting a well-made Bethesda game and a new IP. And that is what I got. And they showed us everything at that developer direct. And I went into it with just expecting a well-made game and a new story. And I loved every second of it. And Luke, I'm so heartbroken that you're so disappointed with the main campaign, because I would argue this is hands down Starfield's main campaign is their best campaign out of all the previous games. Like, I couldn't tell you what happens in Fallout 4 with the Institute or being Dragonborn. Like, is that really that interesting compared to
This is the only Bethesda
Starfield?
game I've played. I've never played any of the
my-
others. I never had interest in them.
That's
They are
interesting.
not.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I
Oh.
don't. It was Witcher 3 that got me into fantasy style games and
That's a-
RPG-esque games.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay,
which-
so broaden my. Go ahead.
Sorry, Witcher. I've only played 12 hours. I know people are gonna hate me, especially Ains.
Oh, Witcher 3 is phenomenal. I
Yeah,
put,
Witcher 3
like,
was
80
special,
hours
man.
in.
Look,
Couldn't get into it, guys. I'm
that,
sorry.
anyone that gets past the Griffin, like, congratulations. You might as well just like run for president or play the lottery, because that game is so long.
Oh yeah, exactly. So many icons. I'm out. I can't even do this anymore. Sorry.
But yeah, so like I've never had interest in Fallout. I've never thought looked cool. And I never had an interest in Skyrim because it was fantasy at the time where I wasn't doing fantasy. And by the time I was into fantasy, it was like there were other perhaps better things. And I say perhaps because I haven't played it. So like it was just a matter of interest at the time. That's all it was. Like, I am changing as a gamer now.
Yeah.
And so Starfield was really attractive to me because it's sci-fi. I love sci-fi.
Yes.
And a lot of that game, I feel like I'm playing Babylon 5, not Star Trek, not Star Wars, but Babylon 5, which is very political and intergalactic and whatnot. So I was very disappointed by the lack of alien species to interact with. But otherwise,
Luke,
I really liked it.
that was a part of their design choice, though. The isolationism. That's what they're going. And I loved being on those, looking at those beautiful skyboxes, wondering, what was going to happen next, going back to New Atlantis, and
And then nothing happened
Achilles'
next because we were on a moon with nothing.
But
But
it was so beautiful, though. It was
Yeah,
so.
This
Were
is
the-
how
were
I
the
know
astronauts
Dan-
for-
I was the one human, maybe possibly on that planet. Isn't that
that's true.
engaging?
No, but despite all these problems, it's one of my games of the year because I got a very special feeling of discovery and fun from it. And that's the funny, odd thing about Starfield.
I
That's
know.
why I think it's polarizing for a lot of
It's
people
so
too.
funny.
Because
Because that's one of the biggest complaints people had about Starfield is that lack of exploration compared to their previous styles. But you've never played any of those other Bethesda games.
not in any substantial way. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like maybe you rented it and played it for a little bit, but like I have no fond or strong memories of playing them. They were not my kinds of games when they came out,
Okay.
and I don't have an interest in going back given all the stuff that's out now. Like I still need to play Alan Wake. I still need to play several other games. The fact that I got into Diablo this year is wild because I never enjoyed Diablo prior to this year. Like I am changing and enjoying the change. So I'll take it in stride as it goes.
And I just want to compliment you. That's awesome. Like playing different games, like that's what it's all about. I really do hope that everybody can give everything a chance, and that's a beauty of Game Pass and some of the things in there. So,
Big time.
Logan, clearly you're not. Well, I'm curious. Where were you on Starfield? Because I can't remember. Like what looking at
think
these stats too.
Looking at the stats, it's great to see that a lot of folks are giving Starfield an opportunity. I kind of wish that 13 million players. I'm glad that they're doing players. I kind of wish I'd seen like units sold out of those million players. Like I would love to know the people that bought Starfield and didn't just play it on Xbox Game Pass, because I think that would give me a better understanding of like the potential of people who are still either tied to hardware or physical media, or the people that bought it knowing that it was going to be an Xbox exclusive and jumped into the ecosystem because of it, as opposed to those who were just like jumping in through Game Pass. I think that would have been something that I would have loved to have seen. I've always really liked Starfield when I got into it. I'm not a big Bethesda person. I think the first Bethesda style game that I played was Outer Worlds, and that wasn't even Bethesda's baby, but it was enough like Bethesda due to the people in charge at Obsidian that it was like, oh, I kind of understand what's going on here. I think Outer Worlds honestly has better humor in my opinion. I would much rather play Outer Worlds 2 than like a Starfield 2, just based on what I know from those studios. But I like what Starfield does. I think that Bethesda as a studio is so ingrained in their design philosophy that they are missing out on opportunities to really have immersive gameplay. I look at, like if we want to bring up like The Witcher or like Cyberpunk as an example, I think that the conveyance of story is better told in other games right now than Starfield is. Not to say that the story is lacking in this, because I think that the story was fun. I think it was a good jaunt to be kind of thrown into this whole kind of story. It's the typical like teenage movie. It's like, oh, this kid didn't know what was going on around the world, but now he's thrown into this situation where he has to go and try and save the world. And what 40-year-old guy doesn't love like that kind of a story in a video game? Like it's kind of like, feeding us exactly what we want on a platter. I think Luke would have probably liked, this game better if you were flying out in space and you had, a spandex suit and a cape.
Yep.
And you didn't have to. Yeah.
Luke, did you ever watch The Expanse, the show The Expanse? Either of you guys?
My connection dropped.
Oh, if you ever watched The Expanse, which it's a phenomenal show. That's what this reminded me of. And maybe that's what I went into with, because The Expanse doesn't really have aliens either. It all takes place within our solar system, to be fair. But it's really, really cool story. And that's what I thought about. Like, I agree with Luke that, like, I think I like aliens. I certainly do believe in aliens in real life. But it would have been cool, like a Mass Effect world where there were different races and stuff like that. But at the same time, like I once I got kind of into the story, I didn't even think about not seeing aliens again. Like it was like, oh, it's fine. This is the world we're in, and it was perfectly acceptable, which was pretty rad, man. So Logan, you were going to say something earlier, and Dan cut you off, or Luke cut you off about Luke with like the game or with Starfield or something. I don't remember what it was.
Oh, I'm trying to think of what. Oh, I was just going to talk about how Luke, it consistently surprises me how we have aliens in the game, but they're not considered aliens because you don't talk to them. But we have all those like alien,
the creatures.
Yeah, we have all the flora that's on all these planets and stuff, and we're constantly dying to them according to the
stats.
To the stats. The poor Freestar Collective people are just getting massacred by the Ashta.
I just want to ask both of you, actually, I hear this a lot, the comparison, like, well, Bethesda needs to change how it delivers its story. It's still set in that Bethesda way, zooming in on the face. It's not as engaging as maybe Cyberpunk, like you mentioned, or Witcher or other games. And I just want to ask, like, we always talk about, enjoying the sevens or enjoying certain types of games. Why do you think Bethesda necessarily has to change the way they do their games? Why can't we just enjoy Bethesda for how they do it? Why do they have to be? I'm not saying you're arguing that they have to be like Cyberpunk or have to be like Witcher or have to be like God of War or something like that. Why can't we just enjoy it for what it is? And it's really interesting hearing your guys' viewpoints on this as being more casual fans of Bethesda. And I think that's why I've maybe enjoyed it more, because I knew what I was getting into. It is really interesting to hear how you guys, this is kind of like your first step into it. I don't know, Logan, have you, random other question, you've playing 76 too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I played 76 at launch when it was just you and other people before they had NPCs.
I was there too. I've played it. It's so wild how much it's changed. I just jumped in recently in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah. So I remember going in and playing there, and it felt like Minecraft. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a waypoint. I was just like standing there like with barely anything and dying to everything. So I stopped after a while. When they brought in NPCs and gave it a story to kind of follow along, that's when I got engaged, because I love stories. I would much rather fall through a story than wander out with nothing and just kind of like, be creative on my own means. It's counterintuitive to what I do with Sea of Thieves, but I follow the lore for Sea of Thieves, even given the nature of that sandbox. But with Bethesda games in general, I think they suffer from being too tied to, and I don't know that this is very much like what their thing is, right? And it's not going to be everything, but for something like Bethesda to be so revered in the industry as like making experiences that people absolutely love and talk about as game of the year or game of the generation and stuff like that, the reverence behind Skyrim and stuff like that, when I see what they do with storytelling and the kind of deadpan, straight to your face, kind of talking to the camera situation, and my interactions with it are very benign. Like I don't feel like all of the actions that I have are always very consequential. I think it's one of the things that everyone really likes about Baldur's Gate 3 is that your consequences have actions and you may not see those results until further down the line. I don't feel like that is the case with Bethesda games. I don't feel like there's like one pivotal point in the entire campaign that you make a choice and that choice has actual consequences. And I commended them on having that because it was something that I think was necessary, especially in a game, given how much is put upon on you to work through certain things. Everything else felt very kind of like, oh, well, you know, if you don't win your way into the bank that's being robbed, you can still go in there and kill everyone and have the same outcome. Or you can, you know, completely save everyone, but you can save everyone by going in and killing everyone as opposed to negotiating. Like the outcome is very minimal to the amount of effort required to work through that. And I think that if you're going to be telling stories that have choices, have those choices all be impactful. If you're going to be telling stories, I think there are more natural ways. Like the way we're talking right now is not what we would look like if we were hanging out in person. And I think the talking heads thing can be done better. And I think like CDPR does a better job with the narrative, the epilogue, or the, you know, the discussion that needs to be had about something by giving, you know, life to the character, seeing more than just the shoulder up and them talking to things. I think that people engage with other people a lot better when they can see all of the body language that's coming across as opposed to just the face. And unfortunately for Bethesda, their face work still needs work. I think that they've done a lot of work since, you know,
Your
Skyrim
face is
stuff.
making me tired. Or, no,
Yeah.
what is it? What is it? What does that say from Mass Effect?
I don't know that one, but I do know the joke.
So yeah, but that's effectively what I think is one of the main issues where they're aspiring to do something that's groundbreaking, but I think something is being lost at a base level when it comes to their narrative, them telling a story. I think they could be doing that better. I think this was the best they've ever done based on what I've played around with, but I also think that there's strides to be made that are counter to what their design implementation is. And I think that they could probably learn something from other games. We see it all the time with games that are picking up, being compared to Breath of the Wild. Like it's okay to take other people's ideas from really good games and work them into your game.
The question of like whether or not they need to evolve their storytelling or stick to what they know is like, it's the same answer that we would give for Insomniac and Marvel. They don't have to at all, but that might be what they need to do in order to compete, survive, or exist at X level. We see so many games that are retro callbacks to an original formula because that's what some people want. There is a market for that. There will always be people that want that Bethesda Game Studios formula. But if they want to reach more people, they might need to change or evolve or something. And so they do not have to change in the slightest. But if we want the quote next Skyrim, that's not going to come from the same formula. They're going to have to Witcher 3 it. They're going to have to God of War 2018 it. They're going to have to somehow, some way improve upon that formula to appeal to the masses because gamers are not the same as they were in 2008, 2011.
That's kind of my question to Jose and to Dan too. Do you guys think that the next Bethesda game, the next Elder Scrolls game, will be the same formula as Starfield?
You know what? That's so funny. Go ahead, Jose. Yeah.
I was going to say, after Baldur's Gate, I don't think it can be. I mean, I think even if they were planning for Elder Scrolls 6 to look like it has been, but obviously like better iterations of story and character development and builds and even visuals, I think Baldur's Gate 3 threw a weird wrench into it. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, like as a as a former student of economics, like creative destruction is a real thing, right? Like you can be disruptive and it actually like pushes the whole market forward a little bit. I think Baldur's Gate did that. Now, what gets complicated is like, even though they say they haven't started working on Elder Scrolls 6 really, we all know they have to have started some element of that. It is still early enough though that seeing what Baldur's Gate has done, I think that they would be, I guess I should say, I don't think they have to, but I think they would be dumb not to. Right. I think at this point to try to keep doing what they're doing after seeing the criticisms of Starfield and seeing what they have wanted to do with Elder Scrolls, like they kind of have to do something a little bit different. And I think the storytelling is there. I think it's been a little bit convoluted because people loved the sandbox thing, but I think what Baldur's Gate did is it showed you can have an incredible story and you can have the sandbox if you have the right development. And I think that's what they're going to be faced with in the coming future. Dan?
Yeah, this one's a tough one for me because I was going to ask you guys the same question. So I'm guessing I'm the one who's played Bethesda games the most. You guys don't have every achievement for Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 4, Skyrim like me, correct?
I do not.
No.
Correct.
Okay. No, I'm not bragging or anything. I'm just saying that's how many
That
hours I
sounded
put
like a
into
brag.
these
That
games.
sounded like a brag.
So it's so funny how hearing you guys speak about it, like I said, as newer players, is Logan was saying how he thinks that Starfield did a great job. This is hands down their most polished, well-made game as far as the facial animations. Like this is a way better than everything that was Skyrim or Fallout 4. I mean, you've seen it in 76. Me going back to 76, I'm like, this is not good. This makes me want to immediately go back to Starfield, you know? And I just think I am so torn on this because a lot of people, some people still argue how amazing Skyrim is. And I actually just recently played Skyrim. I can't remember if it was this year or late last year. I think it was this year. I played Skyrim on PC and I'm like, this is not as good as I remember. And
How could it
be? How could it be?
Well, that's my question, because are you playing with mods? Because I have tons of mods loaded up. Like I read the guides and stuff on for the Xbox mod community, downloaded every single mod that was making this game look better and or work better. It's a 2023 game if you get the mods installed.
Maybe I need to check that out. And the reason why I didn't install mods, Luke, do you want to take a guess why I didn't install any mods? What is it?
3070?
Purist? Because you're a purist? I don't know.
No, it disables unlocking.
Yeah,
achievements.
Oh. No, I get it. Appreciate that.
I know. So it's just very surprising to me how everyone's like, oh, why isn't this game more like Skyrim? But then here we are arguing this game needs to adapt and evolve and not be like Skyrim moving forward. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see. I can't answer that. I'm afraid you're right. Like Jose said, do they have to or do they need to? No, but should they? Like Luke said, like with Insomniac, no, they don't have to, but they're probably gonna have to do something different. And I don't know if they're quite capable of that. I think they've shown us what a Bethesda game is, even with Starfield. And maybe we don't go into these games expecting these grand stories, which I've never argued you should. I don't think Bethesda games are for their stories. It is for the gameplay, the interaction with the world, the sandbox, the factions, I'm really struggling to answer this question. I don't know. I'm afraid that it might be more of what we've seen before, and I don't know if, like you said, gamers in 2040 when this game comes out will accept what we get at that point.
You don't have to know. If somebody said to me, Luke, what game do you want next? I'd say the next Arkham game, and I would want Arkham games nonstop every time. And I'm not wise enough to know what I want. Like if somebody could do that better and do a reinvention of Batman titles, sweet. But like in my mind, I just want more Arkham. So that the creative destruction is necessary because oftentimes consumers don't know what they want. That's the old Apple mantra, right? Like they don't know what they want. Because all I want is more of what I like.
Well, maybe that's what Starfield's doing with the DLCs. I mean, like for all we know, they do have a slated release date of every 6 weeks, and we are going to get aliens, and we are going to get new travel, and you know what I mean? Like, I know that seems far-fetched based on like the landscape of updates right now. You know what I'm saying? But it's possible. Again, they're not planning for it to be a 1-year game or a 2-year game. They're planning it to be a 10-year game.
Right. Just like Halo, 6-week updates, 10-year game. I'm bitter, but I do love me some Infinite. I do love me
Oh
some
man,
Infinite.
I would do anything for campaign DLC for Infinite. Gosh, darn.
Oh man, me too. I think you
Oh.
might. Did you? So,
Yeah,
I know we
I
need to get
read-
Jose out of here.
All right.
Did you see that in Forge they're now creating campaigns?
No.
Yes, I
Worth
did
your
see.
time to look into it. Worth your time because it's only at the beginning, but like Forge is now so intricate. People are
Missions, yeah.
creating campaigns and missions. Dude, I'm telling you, there's campaign DLC on the way now. Now that they've decoupled multiplayer and single player, I think you're gonna see something. I doubt it's big, but like I bet you see something kind of like a Hive Busters. I bet you see a Hive
which was
Busters.
great, fantastic.
It was great. It was great. Jose, you have very rudely, by the way, scheduled your daughter's birthday today.
I know. 9 years ago.
You don't see
I knew
me
this was
leaving right
coming.
now, Jose.
That's right. That's right.
It's your birthday. You could do what you want on your birthday.
But I want to give you a chance to let people know where to find you on socials, where to find the Nerd Chat, which we'll double dip on when we do exit the show. But please let people know where to find you and tell your daughter that we don't appreciate her being so selfish.
I've already let her know in her birthday
Good.
card.
There you go.
Real quick, do want to just, of course, say thank you to you guys, Logan and Luke. It was a pleasure, obviously, to hang out with you guys in person. I promise when we do this again, I will remain for the show. But in the interest of keeping my marriage and my family whole, I got to go. So you can always find me at Chipotle_Bear on X or Chipotle Bear on Instagram or on Xbox Live Chipotle Bear as well. Again, everyone that's listening to the show, you obviously know how awesome Xbox Expansion Pass is. Keep supporting them. They do great stuff. Happy to be part of this community, man. Truly, like, we started this a couple years ago, kind of just as friends, wanted to talk about games, and as it's growing and becoming that community of gamers is growing between you guys and Joe and Kyle and Ains and everybody, like, it just makes us happy every week, man. So in the interest of keeping healthy as men, we need friendship in our old age. Dan Wright, 55. Thank you for everyone for supporting
61. 61.
I'm not
61.
as old as Ains, you guys. Stop it.
He's really old.
Thank you guys
He's
so
super
much.
old.
Yeah, Luke, I'll leave my stuff running here on mute so you can keep it for the upload.
You can hang up. Just keep the tab open.
I don't know where the hang up button is, so I'm just gonna leave it open.
Okay.
So anyway, thank you guys
I
so
don't
much,
see it
guys.
either.
Have a great holiday season to all you guys. Look forward to hearing the next episodes, and we'll see you online. All right.
See you online tonight, Jose.
See you online.
See you guys.
I just want to say that was a perfect opportunity for Dan to be like, well, just call your 9-year-old daughter in to come show you where the hang up button is.
Yeah. No kidding. No kidding. Well, let's now transition over to Bobby Kotick and other Activision personnel. They now have their leave dates. They know when they'll be exiting the company and transitioning over. As of December 29th, 2023, Bobby Kotick will be stepping down as CEO of Activision Blizzard King. This comes from an internal memo from Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer. He also notes that Matt Booty will be taking over in that position. Humam Saknini and Lulu Meservi. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to butcher your names. Lulu, who I've spoken to several times via DM, very nice person. They are also stepping down through December and January, respectively. This is paving the way for what the new Activision Blizzard will be under Xbox. I think this is a good thing for many people for a lot of reasons. Bobby Kotick, not revered and not liked. It's nice to see him leaving, and I'm very curious to see how Activision adapts under Xbox's vision, because Call of Duty has been a powerhouse franchise, getting a game out every year, almost since its inception. It runs well, it plays well. Anybody can argue whether this nuanced thing or that nuanced thing is a factor, but like, you play Call of Duty, it works. It sounds good. It looks good. And so it's very, to me, systemic, and it'll be interesting to see how they adapt it to bring you campaign, multiplayer, PvE, PvP, all that stuff. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff to see down the future there. What did you guys think about seeing Kotick leaving?
I very, very happy to see that. If you guys haven't noticed in the YouTube version, I've sat up. I am engaged with this
You did a
story.
little stretch there too. You're like, all right.
Oh, praise the sun.
Now the show.
So Bobby Kotick leaving is fantastic news for studios. What this is going to do is allow for someone to come in who's Matt Booty, who's very good about letting studios do what studios want to do, as opposed to what can studios do to get us more money for the bottom line. I want to just point out that the golden parachute that Bobby Kotick got was enough millions of dollars that it probably could have kept most of the employees that were laid off this year employed. Additionally, I don't want to discredit the fact that the man knows how to make money for shareholders, and that is his goal, and I think that's why he's going to Sony.
I was just going to ask you, where's Bobby K going next? And is it Sony?
He's going to Sony. And I know Luke doesn't necessarily wholeheartedly agree with this because
I don't disagree with it either. I'm not on a hill.
I know you don't wholeheartedly agree with it, but you don't disagree that it's a potential.
Yeah.
I think that there's a reason why we don't know who's going to be at Sony. And I think that's because
this is wild.
The timing for the acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, Bobby knowing that he was going to be kicked out, and Jim Ryan looking for an out because of the generation that's going on, plus also losing the acquisition. I think Sony is flirting with the idea of bringing Kotick in to try and shore up some of the issues that have been going on, because Bungie hasn't served the way that they expected with bringing in the games as a service model to fruition with their other franchises, because those studios generally aren't actually designed for that. But Kotick knows how to do that. He knows how to push studios to do what he wants, not necessarily what they want. And I think that Sony wants more revenue, and I think Bobby Kotick knows how to do that. And I think that's why Kotick is probably going to be moving over to Sony. And we're probably going to see an announcement late January, maybe mid-January, for that kind of a transition period. Now, speaking to Activision Blizzard, this is fantastic news. Not only has Microsoft been approving and welcoming on unions, but Matt Booty is a great person for being able to work with studios to be able to like manage them. I'm glad that he is, obviously with Microsoft, we have a lot of other people, and I think we kind of know who's going to be taking over for Phil whenever Phil decides that he's had his time in the sun and wants to go relax and spend time with his family. But this is just going to be, it's just going to be a boon. I think it's going to be a boon for Activision Blizzard. I can't wait to see what happens as a result of it. And I'm really glad that Bobby Kotick is out of the picture for Xbox. I'm just so happy about that, because I think that it's just going to really, really raise morale for a lot of those studios.
I gotta push back a little bit. You keep saying that you think this is going to be very good for Activision and Microsoft, but like you said, as much as we may not like Bobby K, he did make Activision a lot of money. And like Luke mentioned, and I'm glad he stressed this as well, because I stressed this last night when we were recording, or the other night, whenever that was. Call of Duty comes out, and it is always a solid game. As much as you may want to dog on it, Call of Duty, like you said, it works. It plays well. It's fun to play. And it's pretty impressive, all things considered, that first day, I'm jumping into multiplayer. And when Warzone launches, I'm jumping into Warzone. And yes, the menus are janky. The unlocks suck sometimes, but it's still fun, and it still brings in a lot of money. I'm just wondering, specifically, Luke, what do you think of Lulu leaving? Because she had a huge role on, influence in Twitter and the whole ABK acquisition. And then Logan, why are you so high on Matt Booty? What has he done that has shown you that he should be in the position that he's in for Xbox? Because to me, I'm not too sold on Xbox's leadership so far, besides Phil maybe and Sarah Bond. And I still have questions concerning the leadership team. So I just wanted to ask you guys that.
Luke, you want to go first?
Yeah. I actually want to answer the Matt Booty part first, if you don't mind, because
No, go for it.
When we had, I believe it was the Xbox leak, we found that Matt Booty was, because I was very anti is not the right word. I was questioning Matt Booty's role because Xbox was struggling so much. This was in 2022. They had that wonderful launch to the Series X. 2021 was amazing. You had Forza, you had Halo, both launched incredibly.
Psychonauts 2, game of the year.
Yeah, if you can get past the teeth level. Yeah, I know. Sorry,
I can't. I'm sorry. I want to. I love that whole world.
You have not. You haven't finished it, both of you. Don't tell me.
I can't get past
the teeth.
It messes with me.
Couldn't get
I'm
past the
already
teeth.
self-conscious about my grill. I'm already self-conscious about it. Just seeing the teeth. That and the what's the thing where you like it's like holes in flesh?
Yep.
Whatever
I know what you're talking
that thing is.
Yep.
I have that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't.
Yeah, you probably can't do pomegranates or stuff like that. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So, but by the way, they had a really good launch, and that 2021 was wonderful, but 2022 was in such detriment. And then we were seeing things like Ghostwire and Deathloop and happen over on PlayStation. And so there were questions raised like, yo, is Matt Booty doing what he's supposed to? Is he holding their feet to the fire? What's going on with Everwild? What's going on with this franchise? Where's Perfect Dark? Like, it was a fair question, I think, to ask you, like, Matt, what's going on?
I think it's still fair, Luke.
I agree to a point, but I wish I had the stuff in front of me. When we saw the Xbox leak that was so massive, we saw a lot of what Matt Booty was saying and doing, internal memos, emails, and he was doing stuff that I remember feeling very positive about, thinking, oh, okay, you were not the problem. Fair. And again, what do we know? We're enthusiast press. We're hanging out outside. We're looking in. I remember really changing my tune because I've always liked Matt Booty. I've always enjoyed his presence. I've always felt like he was a gamer's friend. Like he was a friend to games and people that make games. But there was a fair question to be asked in 2022, and the leak that we saw, again, I don't have it in front of me to say, but like I remember feeling, oh, cool, we're on better pathing here. As far as Lulu, she was very outspoken and seemed to be an advocate for Microsoft's position and mantra and values in a very polar sense to what Activision embodied as far as how they treated their workers, the cadence of release, and like what that meant for studios and their vision. So I don't know that Lulu leaving is a detriment, but she certainly felt an ally in the social spaces. Whether or not she actually is one, I don't know. But like on the social side, as podcasters, it seemed like she was very pro Xbox's new vision. And Xbox's new vision, I think, is going to be very attractive for talent. While you see the industry hemorrhaging jobs, and make no mistake, Activision is set to hemorrhage jobs as well because there will be redundancies in payroll and in HR support, etc. But as the industry has suffered with layoffs, there is now a dearth of talent available and out there, and Microsoft being pro-union, Microsoft seemingly not having nearly the amount of toxicity that some of these other companies are reportedly having, to me, makes it an attractive place to work. And that means that if you have Insomniac hemorrhaging people, if you have studios that are losing talent, and you have an attractive place for talent with multiple teams, and you want a cadence of 4 good games a year, good to great games a year, I think that's an attractive thing. But it'll be years before we find out if that's true, right? It'll be years before we truly get to know.
Before I think Logan is going to answer a question, Luke, I want to ask, are you going to break our third co-host's heart, who's in love with Lulu? Is she going to go over to Sony as well? You guys,
I don't think she ends up at
Bobby K?
Sony.
Okay.
I don't think she ends up at Sony. I don't know. But like, again, in the social spaces, I never picked up on any love for Kotick. If anything, I picked up on like undertones of disdain and dislike. But that could be projecting, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
So you hear that, X-Bacon Gaming? Lulu is safe for now. Your love is not going over to Sony, and I know that would break your heart. So, sorry, go ahead, Logan.
I think that Lulu going to Sony would be a boon for Sony, given how Sony acquires studios, and I think that's exactly kind of where her strengths would lie is to try and help build those connections for studios with them. But I don't know that necessarily would happen. I think, to your question about Matt Booty doing his job, I have to agree with Luke that there was always a point where it was like, it feels like we have a lot of irons in the fire, but nothing getting smacked on the anvil. And I think that was kind of in question in 2022. Matt Booty is responsible for green lighting Sea of Thieves. He's greenlit Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush. He's the games that we've seen come from studios from Xbox that are not just sequels or remakes, are because of Matt Booty and his trust in studios to do something that they're passionate about. Sure, we may not know what Everwild is. State of Decay 3 may be years away because they're still just barely getting kicked up on that.
Where's
But at
Perfect
least
Dark?
You don't want that game right now.
That's a question that, you know, like if Perfect Dark is something that wants to come, you want it to come in a way that is going to have reverence for the original content, but take into account everything that they've learned from Halo Infinite. Fable is something that we are going to be seeing because of Matt Booty. I don't think that the dude gets enough respect for the behind the scenes communication that he has between Microsoft and the studios that bring us all these experiences that we're enjoying. And as such, I think that if he's going to be going over to Activision Blizzard King, I think that the goal here is that what Matt Booty does well is support and help kind of give faith to the studios who are looking to actually build out some of the projects that they want to do. We have a ton of IP right now that has been lying dormant for years. If any of those are starting to come up to the top, it's going to be Matt that greenlights that. And I think he has a keen eye for seeing a studio's talent and seeing like where they would succeed. And I think that if he does this, then we're going to start seeing some really cool stuff come from the fact that we have all this IP that don't have studios associated with it. And he's going to be able to help like navigate which studio is working on what, when we're going to get it, and how much effort or kind of resources that studio gets. And I think that he does that very well. I don't see that outside of like Nintendo and whoever their person is doing that, because Nintendo has the same principle. Like whoever is in charge of their studios, very low key, very quiet. We never hear about them. We never hear about their internal studios, but almost every single one of their games does really, really well, with a few exceptions. And I think that's because you trust whoever is in charge of those studios to give the resources and the time to be able to make those experiences fantastic.
I gotta say, you just sold me on Matt Booty. I'm not even lying. Like how your explanation of some of the decisions made that I was not aware of. I'm like, okay, well maybe he deserves all of this, but I still think time will tell, and I'm still not sold on what I'm very curious to see what Microsoft's going to do with Activision. Like you're right, there is so much there. They have incredible amounts of IP now, but is this IP or are these IPs enough to sway people over? And I'm just very curious to see where Xbox is going to go with all this, because it's incredibly exciting, guys. Like in time, we're not going to know, like Luke said, for years for a lot of this, but either way, it's very exciting. Microsoft's and Xbox's position right now.
I agree with you, but I think the goal isn't necessarily whether or not the IP will sway people. I think the goal should be, will this IP enrich Game Pass enough to sway people? And I think if that happens, if there's enough content, that enough IP going into Game Pass, that will be a boon for Microsoft. Because I think, like Luke brings up a lot of the time, it's more about where people are getting access to Game Pass and how many people are getting access to Game Pass.
I think ultimately there's a lot to speculate on with no fact, and that's just part of it. That's the plight of the podcaster. That's meant to be what we do while they cook, and I'm okay with that. Keep cooking. So,
but not too long, since I'm 60 now. I don't have much time, guys. So I need to start seeing these games. Okay, that's all.
You got plenty of time. People are getting into their 90s now. There's another 3 generations of consoles in your life. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you, Logan.
You had a good run. You know.
Gosh.
I'm sorry that they're never going to make another Mass Effect, but
don't get me started. Wait a second. Have you guys both finished the Mass Effect trilogy?
No, I never got into 3.
Allow me to break your soul. I don't think it's very good. I never liked it.
It's good.
I never liked it.
One's not amazing. 2's really great, and I didn't get into 3 just for timing reasons.
I tried to play 3.
Luke, you would be you're most definitely like a Miranda Lambert person.
Exactly. I was just gonna say yes. He's a
Miranda Lambert person.
A Miranda. Go ahead. Sorry. Okay, we don't
No,
need to get into it. Just broke.
I never. Those were not my. Remember when those were popular? Skyrim. It was an RPG era, right? The 360 era was RPGs,
But
and that was what I played.
Sci-fi third-person shooters. Come
I played Starfield. What do you want from me? But yeah, I just never got it. Never happened. Didn't do it for me. Sorry.
Luke, do we have time to jump into the Lies of P real quick?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. The Lies of P director saying that Game Pass was good. And next to, a week or so ago, Larry and Studio Head coming out saying, I think it's fair that we don't be on Game Pass because we made a big game.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to jump into. I thought it was very interesting that we got this story about the director of Lies of P saying that Xbox Game Pass was a boon to their IP, whereas with Baldur's Gate and Larian, they knew what they had going into it. They saw the results of their game, and they didn't have to ask for that bag of cash to get the marketing promos for Baldur's Gate. I think the timing, if Larian Studios was releasing the Xbox version in line with PlayStation, I think this would have been a different story from Larian Studios because it was untested at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I think them having the popularity and winning Game Pass and having that thirst for Baldur's Gate 3 on Xbox was enough for them to understand that they didn't need to take that deal. I don't know that deal gets done in the 3 months of time that it takes to get it on Xbox, but I thought it was very interesting the difference in takes and how we always hear like, oh, well, Series S is underpowered, and other studios are like, no, you just have to know how to develop for it. This very much is like, Xbox is a huge boon, or Game Pass is a huge boon to our game. Most people probably would never have played our game without Xbox and the marketing deal that we struck with them. Whereas Baldur's Gate is like, no, we know what we have, we're good. And I think it's a clear studio by studio case basis that you can make arguments about why Game Pass is a detriment to the gaming industry, but it is clear that it works for some and it doesn't work for everyone. And I think that is a really good reminder to everyone. It's like, it's okay that things are going to Game Pass, and it's okay that things are not going to Game Pass. Just go buy Baldur's Gate 3.
I'm inclined to agree. What do you think, Dan?
Oh, I was just going to say, do either of you have a Series S actually?
Yeah.
He does.
Okay,
I haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Do you play regularly between the two?
Yes.
On like same game? What are your thoughts on that? Because I've always found like my Series S performs exactly how I would expect it to. I've never had an issue playing. I played Forza or Horizon on both. I've played Cyberpunk on both. I've played basically any first party game that was available between the two, and some third parties. Resident Evil 4 remake I played on both, and I've had the whole argument like, oh, Series S is so underpowered. I have yet to see that. Yes, I'm playing some games at 30 FPS, which for some is unacceptable, but once you just get past that, I feel like the S is an incredible piece of hardware, and I'm tired of hearing that argument personally. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Luke.
No, I fully agree. I bounce between my S and my X regularly. I think it's a great system. I assume the day that I got the expansion card.
Game changer, right? Just to be able to transfer games between the two, download it once. Yeah.
Yes, that changed everything for me, and I could not say more good things about the Xbox Series S. And I don't think, I think it's such a silly thing that we as gamers care or worry about whether or not the Series S is holding back developers. That's not our problem to worry or stress about.
Exactly.
It is the problem of the developers to figure out. And that's fine. That is fine. That is fine. That is fine. That is fine. I don't understand the, it works. It works. If I can play Alan Wake and
I played that too.
Forza,
I switched between that. Yeah.
Rock on. What do I care? What do I care? I do not.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I was the one that was like, no, I'm going to make sure that I get the superior system and buy 2 Xbox Series X's for my rooms, because I'm not going to just go with the 30 frames per second. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the Series X is $350 still right now, which is wild. And so, yes, I probably would have gotten 2 in all honesty, but insane price for that hardware. But I was going to say the reason why the S is special, guys, I don't know if you know this. When you have kids and you go out on vacations and stuff and you're at the in-laws house, the Series S is a great little travel companion that you just sneak under in your luggage. You bury it on the clothes and like, oh, sorry, honey, I brought my Xbox, don't mind me, late at night. So another benefit of the Series S is that compact size and being able to take it with you on trips. And as far as the Lies of P and Baldur's Gate 3, I just wanted to bring up, I actually bought Baldur's Gate 3, even though I'm not sure if it's going to be the game for me at all. I'm right there with you, Luke. I don't know. I'm not all about watching all these endless, interactions and cutscenes and dialogue. I'm more of a gameplay first kind of person, but I'm going to give it a shot. And for me personally, I wish this game would have launched in Game Pass, but I understand Larian's arguments, and rightfully so. It's game of the year. I paid $70. The reason I was able to buy this game at full price was because of the money I've been saving playing games on Game Pass. Like, I've done the math. I don't know if we're going to get into it, the 50 day one releases on Game Pass. Are we going to talk about that, Luke?
Probably don't have time to do a ton,
Okay.
but make your point, please.
I was just going to say, like, I played 11 of those games. Let's say I bought each of those at $20 and waited for it. That's $220 I would have spent on those games waiting to play them versus my Game Pass subscription, which I've stacked a while ago. I've probably never paid more than $150 in a year for it. So the savings I had from that allowed me to buy Jedi Survivor, Diablo 4, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and now I'm going to be trying Baldur's Gate. And so that's one of the main benefits I love about Game Pass is, and I want to try Lies of P, but I've been going back playing a bunch of From Software games. I've been going back after Elden Ring. We can talk about that later. I wanted to ask you guys, do you think a game like Baldur's Gate 3, I'm sure it's selling well on Xbox, I would think, because of all the hype around it. Do you think it would have benefited, though, being in Game Pass, the type of game that it is? I'll just throw it to you guys.
I think that given the social media awareness of what like is available in that game, having it in Game Pass would have given people an opportunity to check it out. I do think that because of the nature of this game, how it plays, buying the game is going to instill a sense of, I need to make sure that I get some value out of this, even if I'm not really in love with the system, because I invested $70 for the price of the game, which may keep people attached to it for longer than what they might have if it was in Game Pass.
I think the game would have benefited greatly from Game Pass. I don't think it needed to. So there's two sides to that coin. Like, it did not need Game Pass the way that I think Lies of P perhaps did. Baldur's Gate 3, Lies of P is the first in a new IP. And Game Pass is not a guaranteed boon for an IP, but like, think about a game like Exoprimal, which we played for a couple weeks and put down pretty quickly. But Game Pass allowed us to play it, and the studio, Capcom, but like the studio that made Exoprimal, they had a chance to win us over when I would not have paid $60, $70, but Game Pass gave them a chance to win me over. I had a lot of fun, but like, they didn't win me over for a purchase or a consistent playthrough. Lies of P, I think Game Pass gave them a chance to win people over. And that's what Game Pass does. It's not a guaranteed success. It's a guaranteed opportunity to win fans. Those are two different things. So I think that's how it needs to be looked at. And nobody should, or I should say, that nobody's obligated to put their game on Game Pass. Like, Sega is really supportive of Game Pass, but Sonic isn't. I would have loved to play Sonic Superstars, but it's still not quite at the price point. Like, I needed it at $30. It's just not quite there. But Atlas stuff's on there. You know, Game Pass is a solution, not the only solution. That's where I take it. I think sometimes we pretend like it should be something else. It's not. That's my take.
I'd agree with that.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, I
did we
think
answer
Phil
your question
Spencer
there?
agrees with that, right? Isn't that what he said? How that's just a part of the overall Xbox, plans. Is Game Pass is just one of the factors of the whole ecosystem. So yeah, you're right there, Luke.
There
It
we
is
go.
the gateway drug into the Xbox ecosystem.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's it. You know,
I mean, and it's funny because I wanted to make this point earlier in the episode. Luke, you were talking about how people that don't have a PlayStation are bummed that they don't get to play Spider-Man because it's only on the PlayStation consoles, and how that is being alleviated by them going to PC. And I'm thinking I would never in my wildest, if I was like a PC or if I was like a console gamer, and the idea of like saying, okay, well, if you're an Xbox fan and you're buying an Xbox console, you're spending $500 on that Series X or $300 or $200 on the Series S. Why would anyone want to spend over $1,000 for a decent enough computer to be able to play Spider-Man instead of just buying a PS5?
Man, the number of people at my work, adults, that have said they want, hey, should I get an Xbox or buy a PC? I really want to play Starfield. Like, what? But there is something, and Dan, I can't remember if you said this in this episode or the episode of Nerd Chat I was listening to, but it was true, Dan. Kids these days now, PC gaming is cool. It was not cool when we were kids.
Yeah, I was wondering. You're right there in it. I was wondering. Yeah,
they love and live for it, and I think it's RGB that did it. People like colors, but like,
literally comes down to that.
I do think that's what it comes down to. Yes.
I mean, look, all of us have some sort of lighting.
That's right. That is correct. PC gaming.
I have no lighting in my background at all. I don't know.
Well, it looks like something's reflecting. Sorry.
Oh, nope. That's all just for camera lighting. I never have any.
This man is lying.
Christmas lighting.
Does
Christmas
your
lighting.
PC have RGB? Exactly.
I'd like to plead the fifth on this.
That's fair. You plead the fizziv. Yeah, so I think that's PC gaming is cool now, and Sony is absolutely right to be coming to PC day and date, and that will absolutely cost some PlayStation sales, just as Xbox sales, some have been lost, but the net gain far outweighs the net loss. And Xbox is no longer just a box, and that's a very old mentality that people have when they think about it. All right, let's switch to listener mail and then get out of here, guys, because we are running long. We had some wonderful people write in. The first came from DaddyDWally himself, the man, the myth, the legend. He wants to know which Halo campaign is the best and why is it Halo Infinite? Logan, you and I have had this discussion before.
Yeah.
And I learned, I know you hadn't played Gears 4 and 5, which I'm heartbroken on.
What is going on with you guys?
But
time.
Okay. See if these.
Also a little game like World of Warcraft came out
That's
back
what it
in
was.
2004.
2000.
And there's like a good chunk of what Xbox was doing during that time that they were just like making stuff, I guess. And it was cool, but it wasn't no Lich King. So, whatever.
Captain Logan, that's so funny you say that. I was dating myself here at college or in 2004. And that's when World of Warcraft came out, and I kid you not, boys, one of my best friends, shout out to Pack Attack, Alan Pack. That game came out. I didn't see him physically for like 3 months. Just never saw him. Just never, didn't go to class, never saw him in person. It was the most bizarre thing. And the fact that game is still going, you just blew my mind right now. So sorry, I understand now.
To go to the core question, the best Halo campaign is Infinite.
Yes.
But 4 and Reach are rotating. 4 is great. Now see, 4 was special.
4 is really good.
And here's why. Okay, because I love Halo. I think that's obvious. 4 is special because it did something on the Xbox 360 that looked next gen.
I agree with you
special.
There. Yes.
It ignited a trilogy that was mismanaged, much the way like the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, right? There's a lot of things that you can do to start something, and they had a great start with the Prometheans. Right. There were some really cool ideas, and I think oftentimes the sequel or the next thing or can add to a game in retrospect. I think about watching Star Wars right now, watching Ahsoka really does a lot for Star Wars and the sequel trilogy and Rebels. If you watch the Snyder cut, it does a lot for Batman vs Superman. If you watch X, it adds to Y. So Halo 5 actually hurt 4 because Halo 4 is really good. Reach was, to me, the apex best of Halo at the time. That was the most feature complete, really cool campaign, did something special without Master Chief that we were all on board for. But Halo Infinite, to me, I love that open world sandbox. I think it needs to be explored more. I hope they don't go back to the linear approach, at least not for now. We have the entire Master Chief collection, which is great for linear Halo, but I really like the open world. I love the high value targets.
Luke, adding the grapple shot, that adds so much to the movement. That if I can't imagine the game anymore without the grapple shot. Like literally that alone, you gotta keep that. So sorry, Luke, you and I are right on the same page. I like where you're thinking. You're right. I think my problem with 4 was, I think it was just how it played, and maybe some of the mechanics is what threw me off with that, not necessarily the story. But you're right; it's still beautiful. If you go back, I actually have played the campaigns recently. I can't believe that was on 360.
Yeah, it's a special, and it's just good. Like the story was great. They just, they killed the Didact in a comic book. In the comic book,
I heard something like
he
that.
cracked Master Chief's visor the way that Atriox does in the game. He cracked his visor and like broke it. You see Chief's eye, and then they kill him off like in a comic book. What?
Yeah.
Also, Spartan Ops was dope in premise. They just didn't quite execute. But it was a really cool premise. Really cool premise. So, Logan, do you have a favorite campaign?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have like a one favorite campaign. I think that the top campaigns for me are 1, 4, and Infinite. 1, because it's just a well-rounded, very perfect told story, just like the first Matrix. It sets out as if it's never going to have a sequel, and it accomplishes that. 4, because it does what I think Force Awakens did for A New Hope, which was take the same basic story, but tell it with a lot more panache and je ne sais quoi. I really love what 4 does to kind of reintroduce what Halo is as a foundation, while adding to it with important story moments that push the potential of what could happen to Chief and Cortana forward. I think they should have committed to that a lot more. And I love Forerunner weapons. I don't know what it is about them. I just think they're cool.
You might be the only one.
I'm totally fine with that too, because I actually, anytime I could get like my hands on one of the Forerunner weapons, I was like, that thing is awesome. I love that. Let's go.
They were cool, but 5,
they were cool. Yeah,
abused them.
Yeah. But I'm not talking about 5. I'm talking about
wait. We can all agree that 5 is the Last Jedi of
Halo on its own, by itself. It's a very good video game, technically impressive, overused boss fights, but by itself it's great, but it does not fit the tone.
Okay.
It does not fit the tone of Halo.
I think the tone follows well enough with the story as far as like the AI goes and what happens. I think it goes well beyond what it should have. I think it should have been a lot more reserved, considering like what they were going to do with the story. But actually, no, I take that back. Luke, I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from. I'm changing my opinion on the fly. I do think that you're right, that the tone did not match with 4 as well as it could have. I think they did go a little too over the top.
I took great offense to Spartan Locke, because Spartan Locke is awesome. An Oni operative, that's a Spartan 4. Amazingly cool concept. Really mismanaged and abused. Michael Coulter did a great job, but like he should have been an Apex character. But also, like, Spartan 4s are shorter than Spartan 2s. Master Chief was the same height. Why? Like little things like their fight was just so meh. And it was like, yeah, Chief's holding back. Yes. But like, come on. He should have wiped the floor with them. He's supposed to be this Oni operative that's turned Spartan. Like, we should have seen a cooler Locke. And that game is a product of its time. Halo 4 delivered on multiple fronts. That was supposed to be the competitor to Call of Duty. And that was at Call of Duty's height. And it just didn't click with the amount of gamers that they wanted it to. So they were like, all right, let's make Halo Call of Duty, which is what Halo 5 is. And as technically impressive as it is, it just doesn't do it. And the forced team mechanics in there fall very short. And it's just a bummer. Like Halo, like how much would Halo be different if they had retrospect? But it is what it is.
So I want to kind of cap this off with my feelings as far as like Infinite goes. Infinite tells a real story.
Good one.
Let's just all agree that having an emotional chief is 100% the right way to go, as long as the mother doesn't take off his helmet.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying.
Keep your helmet on.
Keep the helmet on. I don't care what you look like. You're the everyman for people playing the game.
Yep.
And let people live in that world. Like you can express. Halo Infinite is the proof that you don't necessarily have to, and I think Mandalorian does this well too, is you can convey emotion and feeling through a story without having to see the protagonist's face well up with tears.
Agree.
And having
we talking about Infinite or are we talking about Paramount Plus's hit TV show Halo?
We're talking about how Infinite can do that.
Halo, it answers both questions, joking aside, because there are moments in Infinite where you see Chief's shoulders slump, or you see his tilt of his head just
let's go
tick
play
up
Infinite right now.
And it's so cool. And as a lore person, it's like, yes, I love this. Infinite allowed us to replace Cortana. It allowed us to introduce a new enemy with the Endless. It mystified Atriox, who we fought in Halo Wars 2. It allowed the Banished to be a worthwhile enemy, because before that we were like, brutes suck. There's a lot that Infinite does. Brutes were lame. Like elites were the bad guy. And then suddenly after Halo Infinite, it's like, no, brutes are intelligent and capable and badass. And that is cool to me, because they were
no, Luke,
off.
Their name is Brute. They're not smart. You can't be named. They would be called smarts.
You're right. You make a good point. Silly
Thank
me.
you.
But I really do love where Halo was going, and I hope that's not abandoned because of Infinite's reception.
Yes,
because
I am
Infinite's
right there with
story, and I loved the boss. Like, go find these bosses, fight the basically the Elite Seven that were surrounding. The banished leadership there. That was so cool. And the idea that, like, now this is Atriox's right-hand man, but even the big bad, the one that wiped the floor with the Infinity and kicked Chief off the freaking ship, he's not even in this. Like, that's cool. And there are parts of that map and that ring that we've not even looked at, and it's time to visit there. It's time to see that. So we need more of Infinite's story. I don't care if you call it Halo 7. I don't care if it's Infinite DLC, but they need I loved the idea of Infinite being a platform.
Yeah.
Do
you think we're going to get that this generation, or is it going to be next Xbox?
You are getting it this generation, but it's going to be a Hivebusters-esque style.
Okay.
It's not going to be a full-fledged, because they've had a lot on their plate, but 343's the problem with Infinite and 343 was that they were contract workers. They were cycling talent out and rebuilding consistently. Now that they're fixing a lot of the way that they hire and keep talent on. It's good. You're going to get a much more conducive and fluid development time. That doesn't address the core problem of Halo is not cool to kids. That there is a problem. No,
you still don't see kids dressing up as the Chief. I still feel like he's iconic, and kids know that when at Halloween, when I'm handing out candy and I've got my Chief helmet on, they know who the Chief is. You're right. Maybe he's not cool, and I don't want to.
Thank you, Fortnite.
Yeah, it's because of Fortnite. Fortnite and Warzone and Rocket League are what kids play.
Okay,
that's what kids play. At least, I mean, that's the God's honest truth. So if you want to get Halo to be cool, you need to be in Fortnite. You need Lego. You need. I mean, they have Mega, but like you gotta.
Doesn't matter though. Realistically, like Halo can just be ours, right? It doesn't have to be this flagship IP. I know that's what Ains will argue is like, why doesn't Microsoft treat it like,
Ains
Sony
is old.
does its IP and Nintendo does its IP.
Ains is old. We are old. It can be there for us. But if it's going to be there for us, we need to stop pretending that it needs to compete with Call of Duty and Fortnite numbers.
I completely agree.
That's the difference.
We also need to get off our high horse about what is like canonically correct or be so critical of when we do get one. It's like,
why wouldn't a Spartan sprint? It's just shut up. Like, shut up.
I agree. I'm right there with you. You got to evolve a little bit. Logan, So you're not going to be watching season 2 of Halo on Paramount Plus, the hit show. Their number
Morbid
one
curiosity. You got to watch one.
That is the last 10 minutes of that series was the only cool part about that entire series.
Cortana was great. Cortana.
Look, I have a signed picture of.
You don't like Cortana?
No, I love Cortana. I'm saying like I have the only one of the few signatures that I've ever gotten from an actor is.
You have Jen Taylor's signature.
Jen Taylor?
Yeah, I have Jen Taylor's signature. It is framed in my room. It's on a really cool lithograph. I got to meet her. She's very awesome. I love Cortana, but I can get Cortana in Halo, and it's good. She's like it's almost like she's in her own little pocket of awesome in that show that is completely like outside of the rest of the show. Like you could extract all of the scenes with Cortana and still have a really good show, and just like put in little stills of Master Chief with his helmet on, and it would be like, oh, okay, well, that's a great show. That's a fantastic show.
The part I didn't like, Dan, at the last 10 minutes, which was amazing, like that wasn't Chief fighting. That's bullshit.
It was Cortana.
That's not okay.
Yeah, that whole thing threw me off.
Okay.
I'm right there with you. And let's be real, guys. The CGI was awful during that last scene. It's like we ran out of money.
Yep.
Let's do what we can here.
Okay,
Luke,
as someone who loves Mortal Kombat, it's okay to have bad CG and still be a decent film.
No, it's not. Not when you're being compared to The Last of Us. Luke, I do want to say your meme of put your helmet on should have gone even more viral. I want that. That should have billions of views. I wanted to say that I thought that was hilarious.
I didn't make that. I do want to be clear.
Oh,
I know. I'm sorry. I don't know where I got it. But yes,
There's
put your
a
helmet
lot.
on.
Yeah.
There was a lot of folks that have the same sentiment, and I think it's valid.
By the way, people were like mad at me for it. I'm like, shut up. Don't care. Thank you.
Can we agree though? Like, I appreciate as the show's not good. Let it be known. I don't think it's great, but at least it's different, right? Whereas with The Last of Us, I was like, I've seen this, and everyone loves the episode with Bill and his husband and everything. Bill and what was his name?
I don't know his name, but that was I cried so hard.
Yes, a great episode.
But
keep in mind that was not in the game. Like, and everyone loves the stuff that. No, we didn't see it like that.
We didn't see it. But it was
we heard about it. Yes. But I'm just saying that what people love most about Last of Us was when they went completely different. Whereas with Halo, you went too far different and it's out of control. And I thought The Last of Us on HBO was an incredibly well-made TV show. Loved it. But I'd already played it. And I feel like the game did it better. And I wish that Halo just had a little bit more balance of paying respect to the show, but I do appreciate them doing something different. I don't need to watch what I've already played. That's all I wanted to say about the Halo TV show.
Fair. All right, guys, we got to go. I'm going to sit on Ellery and Kevin's questions just because our time, we've run long. But thank you guys for writing in. Dan, it is an absolute pleasure to have you and Jose here. Would you let people know where to find you on socials and the Nerd Chat overall?
You can follow me at DaddyDWally across all social media. I'm on Xbox, PSN, everything, YouTube. You can follow the show at the Nerd Chat Podcast everywhere. Guys, it has been an absolute pleasure. We've been trying to pick them up, get Luke on our show for months now. And Captain Logan, you are also welcome to come on as well at any time. This has been an absolute pleasure, a dream of ours to be on another show. So thank you so much. It really was an honor to be here and to record with you guys. So thank you so much.
First of many, I hope.
Yes, absolutely.
Logan, what's going on in the Keelhauled universe?
It's been a whole week of double golden, double glory, and everyone's shutting down for the holidays. So we're going into just a really relaxed time right now. I think I'm actually going to be taking this week off. I can't decide because there's a podcast that just came out from the studio. Plus, I want to talk about my Skull and Bones impressions. But I'm itching to record. But I'm like, no, I can take a week off. Mm-hmm. It's okay.
We'll probably take a week off sometime in January. But yeah. I know what you mean. It's like I want to talk, but I got you.
Yeah, I miss having the conversation, but at the same time, I'm trying to be resolute about no, for once I'm not going to put out a podcast, and I'm fighting that really, really hard right now. But that's what's going on with me. Otherwise, just head over to the Discord if you're in the Patreon. Chat with us there. We've been playing a ton of games recently. I mean, it's just been hopping into voice chat and chatting with people and getting their opinions on stuff and talking about the industry. And if you love that, if you want to hear more of this, then that's a great place to be for that.
I will say for any Patreon member, we are doing our community episode. We're recording it this upcoming Wednesday, the 27th. We're talking about our game of the year. If you just want to come on and chat about your game of the year, games you've enjoyed, stuff we're going to spotlight, very casual, relaxed conversation. It's just basically what we do in voice chat. We're just recording it. We would love to have you guys there. You guys can find me on all your socials, specifically Threads. I'm doing a lot more on Threads at InsipidGhost. And of course, you're supporting and listening to XCP. We appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Happy holidays to you. Take care.